Hey everybody, I'm Scott Wikle. You're listening to My Kind of Country. My guest tonight is a musical icon. He's a five-time Grammy Award winner, two-time Dove Award winner. He's sold more than 70 million records and is ranked in Billboard's top 50 most played artists over the last 50 years. With all-time classics like Hooked on a Feeling and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, he's provided a soundtrack that has touched our lives for so many years, and it's a true honor to welcome B.J. Thomas to My Kind of Country. B.J., how are you tonight?
I'm very well. Thank you for talking to me.
Well, it is an honor to have you on the show. We've been working on this for a while. I'm glad our schedules finally came together.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally figured it out.
Well, before we talk about your stellar career, congratulations are in order. I understand that you are the 2020 recipient into the Texas Music Legend Hall of Fame.
Yes, I am. I'm getting the Darrell K. Royal Texas Legend Award, and Darrell K. Royal was the football coach for Texas University and their athletic director for years, and he and I were very close. We were just like brothers, and so I'm very honored to get this award. I joined a lot of my friends.
Well, that's fantastic. You're a Texas native too, right?
Yeah, well, I was born in Oklahoma. I was delivered by my grandmother back in the day, and so I was just in Oklahoma for a couple of weeks, and I'm proud to be born in Oklahoma, but I was raised in Texas, and I lived in Texas all my life, except for a few years that we lived. Gloria and I, when we got married, lived in Memphis, and we lived in New York and Connecticut for a few years, but the rest of the time we've been in Texas.
Well, that's fantastic. You've been married for quite a few years to the same wonderful lady.
I have, and it's been 51 years.
Wow! Congratulations.
Last December. So yeah, it's something I guess we're proud of, and it's not. It wasn't easy, but it's been beautiful. If you know what I mean.
Well, it's. I know it's difficult when you're an entertainer and you're gone a lot. And has your wife traveled with you in the past, or is she kind of separate from all that, or how do you guys?
Oh, she traveled with me for years and years, but. She had a lot to do, of course, with raising our children, and so it became less and less. She still goes with me if I'm doing something, that's kind of unusual or special. She'll go with me when she can.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations. That's a milestone with no doubt.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your career and tell me about the group The Triumphs.
Well, I started with some guys. We were all 15 years old, and we got a band together. Of course, we attended a lot of the dances, and I lived in a small town west of Houston. And I grew up in Houston, but for a few years I lived in a small town there. And at that time, we used to go out to the big dance halls and see the local bands. And the Texas bands, and so we got the idea that we wanted to have a band also, and that's how that started. And we called ourselves the Triumphs, and we had a couple of hit records. I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and Mama, and before we kind of parted ways. But I still see them, once or twice a year, and sometimes we'll do a benefit or a charity together or a dance. So we still have fun.
Oh, wow, that's really great. Well, of course, you had a million seller right out of the gate with I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, and I understand your dad was a Hank Williams fan.
Yeah, he was a big country fan. He loved to have a good time, and he loved country music. And, I grew up listening to the Grand Ole Opry on the radio and various things. And so when I had the chance to make my first album, my dad asked me to do something country on the album. And I had a friend of mine and I had seen the movie Hank Williams' life story, You're Cheating Heart, and he suggested to me after the movie, he said, hey, man, that I'm So Lonesome thing sounds good. We ought to start doing that with the band. And so we did, and it kind of developed into the version or my take on the song. It had been recorded, many, many, many times. before I recorded it. But somehow it, during that great time for music here in the States, it found its way through there and became my first million seller and really got things started.
Now, when you were, during this time period, there was, a lot going on, obviously, with the British invasion and groups like the
Yeah.
Beach Boys and everything like that. And you came right up through the middle, with a stone cold country song, and then you followed it up with another million seller, which is "Hooked on a Feeling." That is absolutely incredible. What was it like at that time with all those other artists being on the charts?
Well, for its time, Lonesome was a little bit more of an R&B. The vocal was kind of an R&B thing, and so it really wasn't taken as country by everyone. It was mainly a pop record, and so somehow it just worked in the middle of all that. And I've always really loved that it was that it happened during that time. Very meaningful to me. And then in '67, that was in '66, and I moved up to Memphis, Tennessee, and started recording with the American Studio Group at American Studio there in Memphis, and we cut "The Eyes of a New York Woman," and we had used the sitar a little, kind of sparingly on that song. And when we did "Hooked on a Feeling," we used the sitar as much as we could, and Reggie Young was the guitar player in the studio band, and he played the classic electric sitar intro and fade to that song. It was kind of a difficult record to get played. The radio was very hesitant on that song, and but once it started getting the airplay, it became it's probably my most popular record, very close to Raindrops. So.
Sure. Well, I think your music kind of transcended genres. We've always kind of pigeonholed people into categories, but your music appealed to pop audiences. It appealed to country, and back then they had what they called the easy listening stuff.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, I think our band and my style, or whatever you want to call it, was kind of a product of of top 40 radio. Where they played everything on the same station. And so, I think country people think of me as country, and pop people think of me as pop. Of course, that pop music that I did is not really even there anymore, but things have changed there. But, the genres, I never really bothered about genres. If it was a song I liked, I didn't hesitate to do it.
Absolutely. Well, of course, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. That's been, on the Billboard top 100 songs of all time, and you've, sold millions and millions of copies of that. What is the story behind that song? How did that song come to you?
Well, "Hooked on a Feeling" had a lot to do with that. Mr. Burt Bacharach, and Hal David, they when it came time to do the song for the movie, Butch Cassidy. I was kind of in their thoughts a little bit, because I just had "Hooked on a Feeling," and they were Mr. Bacharach owned a part of Scepter Records, the label I was on out of New York City. So he kind of gave me the shot to do that, and I loved working with him. It was a beautiful experience. We recorded, of course, we did it Raindrops for the bicycle scene, and then I re-recorded it about 6 weeks after that for the single version, which became the hit record. And Butch Cassidy was such a good movie. That was another record that was hard to. People just hesitated to play it. It was different. They hesitated, but when the movie came out, it kicked the song off, and of course it was a huge hit for me.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you wrote some great songs as well over the years. And are you still doing some writing?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm looking at recording some things here sometime in the next few months, and so I'm trying to get my writing cap on.
Well, that's fantastic. A couple of songs I want to ask you about. you did a song called "Rock and Roll Lullaby" in 1972. It was a #1 hit for you, and I've always been curious: is that the Beach Boys that are backing you on that song?
Well, we cut that song, and we actually got after it was over with. We said, "Hey, let's get the Beach Boys to sing this part." And Darlene Love had done her part with the chiffons and the blossoms, and we wanted the Beach Boys on there. And we actually did get Brian Wilson on the telephone, of all things, and we played him the song, and he agreed to do it. So we flew to California, and we were also recorded with Carole King and Paul Williams while we were out there, and Jimmy Webb. And while we were there, we never could reach Brian again, but we did get the group that worked with the Jan and Dean, and they could duplicate that Beach Boy sound, and that's who we used.
Oh, okay.
They sound very close to the Beach Boys, and it worked really well.
Wow, that certainly did. You had me fooled. I could have swore that was the Beach Boys on there.
Yeah, they were just like them. It was brilliant. They could really do that. And they had been doing that their entire career. It was three guys, backup singers, and now I'm going to not remember their names, but they were very important in the early days of our music, and they had been involved with Jan and Dean and various recording artists and hit records, Ricky Nelson and people like that, so they duplicated that sound beautifully.
They sure did, and a lot of people don't know, too, that Dwayne Eddy was playing guitar on that cut.
Yes, right. I want to leave him out. Dwayne Eddy played on the intro, and brilliant, just a brilliant.
Absolutely.
Part.
Classic song. I love it. And, of course, I Just Can't Help Believin', a smash #1 in 1970 for you. And, man, what a beautiful song that is.
Yeah, that was written by Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil, and they also wrote Rock and Roll Lullaby and a number of songs for me. And Here You Come Again, You've Lost That Loving Feeling. They were great writers. And they wrote Just Can't Help Believin', and I recorded that in Memphis, and I still perform that every show. I'm very proud of that one, too.
Wow. Well, one of the classic I call cheating songs, whether it's country or pop or whatever it is, was "Hey, Won't You Play Another Somebody Done Somebody Wrong" song.
Yeah, we were recording in Nashville. The American Studio Group had relocated from Memphis to Nashville, and Chips Moman was the producer of those songs of mine. And we had cut an entire album, and we, of course, sat down at the control board there. We played the album back, and Chips said to me, he said, B, I'm not sure we have a hit record on this album. And I said, well, I don't think we do either. And the organ player, Bobby Emmons, said that, suggested that Chips play me a song he had just written with Larry Butler. And Larry Butler was the guy that did all the Kenny Rogers music. And anyway, he was a little hesitant to play it. I'm not sure if he even knew it that well at that time. And anyway, we played it down. Somebody Done Somebody Wrong song, and it just obviously was a song that fit me to a T. And so we recorded it, and it to us was obviously going to be a big record, and it was. It was a #1 country, #1 pop, and of course I still do that also.
Man, that had a long title too. Had a lot of words that one. That's
right.
kind of unusual. You had to make that really fine print to make it fit on the 45, didn't you?
You did. Right.
Well, so I mean, great songs. What during that time when all of this was happening for you? What are some kind of aha moments that stand out for you during that time?
Well, Raindrops had kind of transformed my career from just another singer to kind of put me up on a little bit higher level, and so I was dealing with that and enjoying that a lot. And I got to work with a lot of great. My entire career was really a great thing for me. Just kind of everything was wonderful. My first gig out of Houston when I had I'm so Lonesome was with James Brown. I went out and toured with James Brown because they thought I was an R&B singer, and which I am, I guess. And I always loved all the R&B singers, Bobby Bland, Ray Charles, and all those people. And so that was a great moment for me. Of course, the Dick Clark tours all those things. I did Raindrops. I did the Academy Award show, and of course, Raindrops won an Academy Award that night, and as well as the score for Butch Cassidy. Mr. Bacharach won two Academy Awards, and Hal David won one, and I did the performance on the show. So that was a wonderful experience, and the whole thing has been great. I've had a wonderful life. I've got to do, what I guess I was born to do, and what I've always loved to do, and the experiences have been, you're always learning in any form of life, I guess. But I've learned a lot about myself in music, and I've had some wonderful experience, worked with a lot of great artists.
Well, I think that's the best thing you could take away is the wonderful experiences and the great people that you get to know. And I mean, the awards are fantastic, but that's really not how you measure a career, I guess. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, all the people I've worked with, and just the longevity of my career. I'm headed out here Friday for Florida for 10 days. So I'm always working. I just got back from New York City. I did a show here this past Saturday there. So, just the longevity of it is something I appreciate now, and I'm thankful that I've had the chance to do it.
Oh, absolutely. We were talking about the Beach Boys earlier. I wanted to ask you, too, about Don't Worry, Baby. Big hit for you in 77. And you have a different verse in there than what the Beach Boys recorded. Was that specially written for you?
No, that particular song, and I've always loved the Beach Boys, and I've worked with them often. And always loved their music, as like millions of other people have. That "Don't Worry, Baby" has about 8 or 9 writers on it, and it's got many verses, about 6 or 7 verses, and so we picked the ones that we thought fit me the best, and we did them. But none of the verses were written especially for me, but there were a lot of verses to pick from.
Oh, okay. So there were verses that weren't included in the original recording then.
Right. We needed three verses. Was going to make it work, and there were about six verses, 7 verses in all, about drag racing and certain things. And so we eliminated some of the verses and cut it down to the ones we liked.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really cool. Well, folks, we are talking with B.J. Thomas today. BJThomas.com is his website, and on Facebook is the B.J. Thomas. That's the official Facebook page. We will share all that information on our Facebook page for My Kind of Country as well. And some great songs came along for you in the 80s. Of course, the theme for Growing Pains, and that was recorded a few times. I know you did a solo version, then you recorded a couple duets on that too, right?
Yeah, I did with Dusty and Jennifer Warren, Dusty Springfield and Jennifer Warren. And, they have to, the show was so big for like 10 or 12 years that every 3 or 4 years they would try to change it up a little bit. And I was home one evening, and the phone rang. I answered the phone, and it was a guy I didn't know. I don't know where he got my number, but it's a guy named Steve Dorff. And he and John Bettis had written a song, and he said, "Hey, we're writing a song for a pilot TV show called Growing Pains." And he said, "The song is coming out. It sounds so much like a B.J. Thomas song that we want to find out if you will do it, if you're willing to do it. Because if you're not going to do it, we've got to change it up because it sounds so much like you." And I said, "Yeah, hey, I'd be glad to do it." So that's how that happened. I flew out to California, and we cut the song, and just out of nowhere, it became became the number one sitcom on TV for many years, and that song has probably gotten more airplay than almost any song I've ever done.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We had some other great songs on New Looks from an Old Lover during that time. Whatever Happened to Old Fashioned Love and Two Car Garage. Man, great material.
Yeah, my wife was one of the writers on New Looks.
Oh, wow.
Old Lover, and Whatever Happened to Old Fashioned Love, and I recorded those songs with Pete Drake, the legendary producer, songwriter, and steel guitar player in Nashville, and then I've been very lucky in the country genre.
Absolutely. There's a song on your 1992 album called Back Against the Wall, and it's called You Make Me Feel Brand New. That's such a beautiful song.
Oh yeah, the stylistics. Of course, I admire them greatly also, and I had always wanted to do. I did song on an album I did with Steve Tyrell, and yeah, great song.
Absolutely. And of course, I would be remiss not to talk about your wonderful gospel music. You've won 2 Dove Awards, and I also read that you were the first artist in the gospel genre to have a million-selling record.
Well, I was the first. I had the first platinum albums in gospel. There were quite a few gold records, but my first 4 albums in gospel were the first platinum records in that genre. And of course, I've always been very, very proud of that. I had no idea of the size and the importance of that genre when I made the first record. So it was quite rewarding for me.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. And more recently, you did a duet with a good buddy of mine, T.G. Shepherd, and also Jimmy Fortune on T.G.'s album, and it's called 100% Chance of Pain.
Yeah, T.G. is one of my best friends, and we did that duet a few years ago, and he's great. Love that guy.
Absolutely, beautiful, beautiful harmonies too. That whole album was fantastic, no doubt about it. Tell me about your Grammys. What was it like winning a Grammy Award?
Well, gosh, that was an unexpected thing. Also, that was for all 5 of the Grammys were for gospel music, and it was unexpected at first, but the gospel music was just hugely successful, and I had a great time in that genre. I'm not the most religious person, but of course I consider myself to be a very spiritual, and there is a faith I live by. So I enjoyed my involvement in that music, and I still sing that some gospel every performance, and that's been really rewarding also.
So when you're performing today, obviously, there's a whole group of songs that I'm sure you have to do. The audience expects it, and as you're putting together your live shows, how do you go about choosing your songs?
Well, I try to do is all the ones that sold a lot of records. So I try to do those things. And then there are some we just do for fun. We do some Jackie Wilson and some Eddie Floyd, and I've always been a huge R&B music fan, so we do that some, and we do some Bacharach things that weren't my records every now and then. So we just try to have as much fun as we can.
Well, that's great. You did a project in 2013 called the Living Room Sessions, and you kind of did stripped down versions of a lot of your songs.
Yeah, we were approached by this little independent company in Nashville to record, and they wanted to re-record my hits, and we've kind of always resisted doing that. Not that we had never done it, but we've resisted that most of the time. And we said, no, we don't want to do that. And they said, well, how about if we do it acoustically, and then you can have all the guests, singers and duets that you would like. So it gave me an opportunity to work with Vince Gill and various people, and so the acoustic idea was interesting to us. So we did that, and then it came off quite well.
I thought it came off great. It's always unique to be able to hear an artist in that kind of a setting. You really get a sense of who they are, and you hear those things that, in your voice that might get lost sometimes with a full band.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one reason we did it. It has quite a different sound. It's more honest, maybe without all the bells and whistles, and it was really fun to do.
Absolutely. I saw a TV show some years. I believe it was Ralph Emery, Nashville Now, if I'm not mistaken, and you were given a Purple Heart on that show. Do you remember that story?
Well, yeah, there was a guy I met. Of course, I meet a lot of interesting, lovely people through on the road and doing all the shows I've done. And the one guy came up, and it's really kind of a tough story. But he was he was captured in Vietnam, and he had a guitar, and they asked him to play a song, and he played one of my songs, and then he was tortured, and anyway, he's very lucky to get out of there, and they ruined, in the course of the imprisonment, his hand was ruined, and kind of ended his days as a guitar player. And anyway, I kind of was always a major part of this memory, maybe the good part of that memory, if that's possible. And he, when he came to see me live, he gave me his Purple Heart, a very, very moving. It was still in the box. He got it in. I don't think it had ever been out of the box, and it's a treasured possession of mine. And I didn't really want to take it, but it meant so much for him for me to have it. So I'm very thankful to have it.
Wow, that's really amazing. That is really an amazing story. Can you tell me and I know this is probably putting you on the spot, but so many years being on the road and things like that, do you have a kind of a funny road story that kind of stands out in your mind?
Oh man, the road can be very funny. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. There's not one popping up, but I used to, when I was involved with Dick Clark, there were various other artists, and one night, the last night of the tour, we were on the road for 100 days. That first tour, with a lot of great people, and the one guy went to my band, and when I did Lonesome, instead of playing it in G, he got my band to play it up in B, key of B, which was like 3 or 4 octaves higher, and of course I looked like an idiot trying to sing it, and that's funny now looking back, but it wasn't very funny when I did
not so funny at the time.
Musicians are some of the most interesting people. I don't know what really motivates us to get up and pour our hearts out in front of an audience, but we have that need, and musicians are very funny and interesting people, and they're always playing jokes on people. Just recently, my drummer, they had a sign in the dressing room, welcome. It was supposed to say welcome B.J. Thomas and his band, and it said welcome J.B. Thompson and his band. So my drummer thought that would be funny, and I guess it was a little bit. But, there are always some things that are funny, and it's it's being on the road for all these years has been a terrific experience, and every feeling and every emotion that you can imagine, you will feel at one time or another in your involvement with traveling and getting up in front of audiences and interacting with them. And I've had quite a few wonderful experiences.
That's great. I know as an artist, you're constantly having people pitching songs and things like that. Is there any song over the years that was pitched to you that you passed on that maybe you wish you wouldn't have?
Yeah, when I got Just Can't Help Believing, Barry and Cynthia also sent me Here You Come Again, which was a big, huge hit on Dolly Parton. And we were, I was leaving town that night on a plane, and we felt like we only had time to do the one song, so I didn't do Here You Come Again. And I've always, that always has stuck in my mind. Why didn't I take a few minutes to do that song? But there are times like that when you're kind of hot and you're being successful within the music industry. You get up next to a lot of songs that you could have had or you might have had. And I Believe in Music. Mac Davis sent me I Believe in Music, and I recorded it, and it obviously was a a hit record, but it was maybe it was too obvious because we didn't get it and we didn't have the hit. Someone else had the hit, so that happens quite often.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And you've written a couple books, including your autobiography. And was tell me a little bit about the experience of going through writing all these memories.
Well, it might have been a mistake to even do it, but I'm always feeling like I should write another book, and really this book was mainly a kind of a gospel oriented on my life, and I'm always thinking that I should do another one and really tell the unvarnished complete story. But they were interesting to do. Home Where I Belong, and then Gloria wrote a book too called In Tune, and that was during the our early involvement in gospel music and kind of telling our story and trying to share something that might have a positive effect on someone who was having the same problems with drugs and alcohol that I was having and had for years, and kind of had a good motivation to it. We thought if we told our story and how I recovered and got through that it might help someone in their struggle with that situation. And so it was an interesting thing to do, and it kind of gave you a good feeling. You felt like you were doing something to help people.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to do. And, in the entertainment business, it's a lot of people think that you just kind of show up and sing your songs and get the applause and everything, but it's a lot of work. It's you're like you said, you're on the road a lot. You're in hotels. You're doing sound checks. You got to worry about band members. There's so many things, and it's very easy to fall into those kind of traps. And and
then you're away from home, and it seems like you're always gone on someone's birthday or Thanksgiving or whatever, not that I'm not complaining, but there is a lot of things involved with being on the road and entertaining that you wouldn't think of right off hand. It's like a 24/7 job, because you have to take you're the same way on radio. I'm sure you got to take care of your throat. You've got to get all the rest you can, because when you're traveling, you don't get a lot of rest most of the time. And, it takes a commitment, and, it's all been worth it, believe me.
Well, you obviously love what you do, and I, talking to you, I think that's probably the biggest motivator, is that you really enjoy what you're doing, and you love to make music, and that's what keeps you going.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious kind of truth of the whole situation, is that it's a burning desire that I would not be able to have a peace of mind or anything if I didn't do it. Now, of course, I don't go out for months at a time anymore, but I'll do somewhere between 60 and 80 shows a year, as that takes up a lot of time, and it's just something I'm compelled to do, and I wouldn't be happy if I couldn't do it. So I'm very thankful that I can still get out there and do my part.
Well, we are all thankful that you're still doing that, and we look forward to hearing more music from you. And folks, please go to bjthomas.com, check out his music, and be sure to go see him in concert if you get the chance. And you're doing the smart thing. You're getting down into the warmer climate this time of year. Good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to get down there where it's a little warm. When I was in New York last weekend, it was 58 degrees. And got to 74 degrees that day, so things are kind of seem lopsided right now. But I've got a lot of friends down in Florida. I'm glad to get down there. And man, I just want to thank you for playing my records all these years, and your listeners for keeping me around. And of course, there's no way I could have been talking to you now about this beautiful life I've had if it hadn't been for you playing my records and the people buying them. So I thank you very much for that.
Well, it's an honor, and I thank you for all the wonderful music, and I certainly want to thank you for taking time to be on My Kind of Country. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Hey, no problem, my friend. Thank you very much.
All right, that is B.J. Thomas, folks. B.J. Thomas, thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.